The applause for my sister Vanessa was deafening. She waved like a queen, soaking it all in. Then they called my name. A few polite claps. I smiled anyway. But just as I stepped down from the stage, Dean Harlan took the mic again. "Before we continue," he said, "we have one more special recognition." The crowd quieted. My heart raced. He held up a folder and began reading. Words that didn't sound real. "Jasmine Carter has changed lives with her innovation." Gasps. Eyes turned. My parents froze. Their smiles vanished. And in that moment, the truth stood taller than pride. Growing up, it was always clear who the favorite was. Vanessa was the sun in our house. Everything and everyone revolved around her. She had the best clothes, the biggest room, and the loudest birthday parties. When she brought home a B+, Mom would frown, but still cook her favorite dinner. When I brought home an A, I barely got a glance. "Vanessa is just naturally gifted," Mom would say, stroking her hair. "You have to work harder." I did work harder, but it never seemed to matter. When we were little, Vanessa got ballet lessons. I wanted to try too, but Mom said, "That's not really your thing, Jasmine. You're more plain." So I watched from the hallway, copying her twirls in secret, until I fell and scraped my knee. No one noticed. At school, I was quiet. I liked books and puzzles and drawing strange ideas in my notebook. Vanessa was loud and funny, always surrounded by friends. Teachers loved her energy. They often forgot we were sisters. At home, I cleaned the kitchen without being asked. I helped Dad fix the porch when he hurt his back. But Vanessa got the praise. Always her. By the time high school came around, I'd learned to shrink myself. If Vanessa wanted something, she got it. If I wanted something, I had to figure out how to earn it first. Even when I made the honor roll every semester, it wasn't a big deal. Vanessa made the cheerleading squad. That was celebrated. When college applications started, I didn't expect much. Vanessa announced her dream school at the dinner table one night, and Mom and Dad beamed with pride. "We'll make it happen," Dad said without blinking. "We'll pay for everything." I stayed quiet. I'd been accepted into the same school, but I knew better than to ask for help. Still, I tried. "Mom," I asked one evening, heart pounding, "do you think you could help me with my tuition too?" She didn't even look up from her phone. "We're already paying for Vanessa," she said flatly. "She earned it. You'll have to figure something out, scholarships or whatever." "But I have better grades," I whispered. She finally looked at me, her face sharp. "Grades aren't everything. Vanessa has potential. You're just not built for big things." I nodded like I understood. But something cracked in me that day. So I got to work. I applied for every scholarship I could find. I worked after school at a diner, wiping down sticky tables and memorizing customers' orders. On weekends, I tutored middle school kids and walked dogs. I learned to stretch every dollar. Vanessa spent that year shopping for dorm room decor, going to senior parties, and updating her followers on Instagram. I spent mine learning how to make instant noodles in 5 different ways. We ended up going to the same college, same year, same campus. But we lived in 2 different worlds. When we arrived, our parents took her out for dinner, moved in all her things, and made a whole scene in the dorm hallway. Mom cried and hugged her like she was sending her to war. For me, a quick pat on the back. "Good luck," Dad said. No photos, no dinner, just good luck. I carried my own bags to my room and unpacked alone. From the very beginning, I promised myself one thing. I will not ask them for anything again. Every time I passed Vanessa on campus, she acted like she didn't know me. Her friends giggled and whispered. I heard one of them call me the charity case. I kept walking. At night, I studied until my eyes burned. I'd rest for 2 hours, then head to my job before class. And yet, I was still standing, still learning, still climbing. The hardest part wasn't the silence. It was knowing that I could win a Nobel Prize and my parents would still be prouder of Vanessa if she got 100 likes on a selfie. But I wasn't angry. Not really. I was just done waiting for them to see me. And deep down, I knew that if they wouldn't see me on their own, I'd have to show them. And when I did, they wouldn't be able to look away. College was supposed to be a fresh start, but for me, it felt like high school all over again, with nicer buildings and more expensive problems. Vanessa and I were on the same campus, just a few buildings apart, but it was like we lived on two different planets. She walked around like she owned the place, always surrounded by friends, wearing designer clothes our parents bought her, laughing loud enough for everyone to notice. Her Instagram was full of filtered smiles, latte art, and pictures of her new car with captions like, "Thanks, Dad." Meanwhile, I was invisible. My morning started before the sun came up. I worked the early shift at a campus cafe, wiping tables and making coffee for students who barely looked at me. After that, it was back-to-back classes, tutoring gigs in the evenings, and late-night study sessions. I barely had time to eat, let alone socialize. Vanessa never acknowledged me in public. Once I passed her in the student union. I gave a small wave. She stared right through me like I wasn't even there. Her friend leaned over and whispered something that made her laugh. I swallowed the sting and kept walking. It wasn't that I was jealous of her. I didn't want her life. I just wanted to be seen, for once. Just seen. What made it worse was that our parents kept treating her like she was some kind of royalty. They visited her every other weekend, took her to lunch, sent care packages full of her favorite snacks. For me, nothing. Not even a text to ask how I was doing. One day, I overheard Vanessa on the phone with Mom. I was sitting at the back of the library behind a bookshelf studying for an exam. She didn't know I was there. "I don't even know what Jasmine's doing here," she said, her voice sharp. Like, no offense, but she doesn't fit. She's just surviving. Mom must have said something back because Vanessa laughed and replied, "Right? You said it. Some people just aren't built for more." That hurt. It wasn't surprising, but it hurt. Still, I didn't let it break me. That same week, I pulled a double shift at the cafe, helped a freshman with their math homework, and aced my biology exam. I didn't tell anyone. There was no one to tell. But I knew, and that had to be enough. One rainy night, everything changed. It was after 10 p.m. I had just finished cleaning the lab I worked part-time in. My clothes were damp from walking in the rain, and I was exhausted. I stopped in an empty lecture hall to rest before heading back to my dorm. The room was quiet, except for the echo of my own footsteps. I pulled out my notebook, the one where I kept ideas for tutoring tools and learning games. Just sketches and thoughts. Nothing serious. I started practicing a speech for a scholarship I wanted to apply for, talking to the empty chairs like they were judges. That's when I heard a voice. "You wrote that yourself?" I turned around, startled. A tall man in glasses stood at the back of the room, holding a folder. He looked familiar. "I'm sorry," I said quickly. "I didn't know anyone was here. I'll leave." He raised a hand. No, don't go. That was impressive." He walked down the steps and extended his hand. "I'm Professor Harlan, Dean of Student Innovation. I usually walk through here on my way home." He smiled, but I think I was meant to hear that tonight. I didn't know what to say. He sat beside me and looked through my notebook. "These ideas, have you shared them with anyone?" I shook my head. "No one's really interested in what I do." He closed the book gently. "I am." That moment, it was the first time someone saw me, not just as Vanessa's sister, not as the quiet girl cleaning tables or studying in corners, but as someone with something real to offer. He told me about a leadership program on campus, one that supported student innovators with resources and mentorship. It wasn't advertised, you had to be invited. "I want you to apply," he said. "You have something special." And just like that, the wall between me and the world cracked. I didn't know it yet, but that night was the beginning of something big. Something no one, not even Vanessa, could ignore. After meeting Professor Harlan, something in me shifted. For the first time since college began, I didn't feel like I was just surviving. I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could become something more. He emailed me the next morning with the link to apply for the Student Innovation Program. It was small and extremely selective. Only 5 students were accepted each year. I hesitated. A part of me still believed I didn't belong there. But another part, the one that stayed up nights working and dreaming, knew I had to try. I worked on the application for days. Every break between shifts, every quiet moment in the library, I was rewriting my pitch, refining my ideas, making sure I showed them the very best of me. I submitted it without telling a soul, not even Vanessa. Especially not Vanessa. She still walked around campus like a celebrity. Her friend group had only gotten bigger. She was dating a senior in the business department, and they posted couple photos in matching outfits almost daily. Our parents kept reposting them on Facebook with long captions about how proud they were. No one ever mentioned me. One afternoon, I walked past a bench where Vanessa and her friends were sitting. She was holding court, laughing about how she was going to skip another class because, who even cares? I ducked my head and kept walking. I cared. I cared so much it hurt. A week after I submitted my application, I got an email. "Congratulations, Jasmine. You've been selected for the Future Leaders of Innovation Fellowship." I read it twice, then a third time. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't even make a sound. Instead, I just sat there in my tiny dorm room smiling through tears. It was the first time in years that I felt proud of myself without needing anyone else to say it. I met with Professor Harlan again that week. The fellowship came with a mentor, funding, and a chance to develop a real-world project to help the community. I told him about an idea I had, a simple free tutoring app that could connect college students with kids in low-income schools who needed help in subjects like math, science, and writing. He loved it. "This is the kind of thing that changes lives," he said. "And you're going to lead it." I couldn't believe it. I wasn't just being noticed, I was being trusted, empowered. We started meeting every week. I worked in secret, using late nights and stolen hours to design the app's layout, build a team of volunteers, and test ideas. It was exhausting, but it lit a fire in me that nothing else ever had. I kept it all hidden. Vanessa knew I was busy, but she didn't care to ask. Our conversations, when they happened, were short and cold. "You still working at that coffee place?" she asked one evening while waiting for an Uber. "Yeah," I said. She smirked. "That sucks. I could never." She didn't know what I was really working on. No one did. And I liked it that way. It felt good, powerful, to have something that was just mine. No judgment, no comparisons, just the truth of who I was, building piece by piece into something meaningful. Meanwhile, our parents kept calling Vanessa every weekend. I overheard her once telling them she might change her major again because this one's too hard. They didn't care. "Whatever makes you happy," Mom said on speakerphone. They never called me. Sometimes I wondered if they even remembered what I was studying. Still, I pushed forward. Professor Harlan introduced me to a few former fellows, students who had launched nonprofits, published research, even gotten job offers from major companies. They all started just like me. Overlooked, underestimated, but full of quiet brilliance. I began to believe I could be one of them. That spring, the fellowship required us to present our projects in a closed panel session. Mine was selected to advance to a national showcase, but I had to keep it quiet until graduation, when the university would make a formal announcement. I didn't mind. I liked the silence now. It was peaceful, full of quiet power. No one saw me coming. And that was the best part. Because while Vanessa chased likes, I was building something real. Something that would one day show the whole world, including my parents, who I really was. Not the forgotten sister, not the charity case, but the girl they dismissed. Standing tall on her own. By the time we reached our 3rd year, the gap between Vanessa's image and her reality started to show. It was small things at first. Missed classes, skipped deadlines, whispers in the hallway about her GPA slipping. But no one questioned it. Vanessa had always been the golden girl and people saw what they wanted to see. But I saw everything. One night, I was on my way to the library when I spotted her through the glass walls, sitting alone in the far corner. Her head was down, her laptop open, and tissues scattered on the table. I paused. She didn't see me, and for a moment, I just watched. Vanessa wasn't scrolling Instagram or texting like usual. She was staring at a blank Word document, her hands trembling. Her perfect hair was tied up messily and her mascara had smudged beneath her eyes. She looked tired, scared. I had never seen her like that. She wiped her eyes, shut her laptop, and took a deep breath before standing up and fixing her posture. When she walked out moments later, her confident mask was back on, just like that. The crying girl vanished. I didn't say anything. I could have walked up to her. I could have offered help. But all I thought was, now you know how it feels to carry the weight alone. A week later, I overheard two girls in the bathroom talking. I heard Vanessa Carter got a warning for plagiarism. No way. Her parents would flip. They won't find out she talked her way out of it again. I didn't want to believe it, but the more I looked, the more I noticed. Vanessa was struggling, badly. Her charm and social media smiles were covering up a mountain of academic pressure and bad choices. And yet, Mom and Dad still had no clue. They sent her new clothes, money for takeout, even flowers during midterms. "Proud of our star," Dad wrote in the family group chat, where only Vanessa's name showed up. I wasn't in that chat. One night, Vanessa cornered me in the hallway of the dorms. It was rare for her to speak to me at all, but something was clearly bothering her. "Hey," she said, crossing her arms. "Why do you look so happy lately?" I blinked. "Excuse me?" "You walk around with that smug look like you're better than everyone." "I'm not," I said. I'm focused." "Yeah?" Her voice got sharper. "Well, don't get too comfortable. No one actually cares about what you're doing." That told me everything I needed to know. She was watching me. Maybe not closely, but enough to notice that I had changed, that I was rising, and it scared her. I shrugged. "I'm not doing it for them?" "For who then?" she snapped. "For me." She didn't have a comeback. She just scoffed and walked away. From that day on, the tension between us grew. We weren't just living separate lives, we were in quiet competition. She pretended not to care about my schedule or my meetings, but she always seemed to show up where I was, hovering around my study groups, peeking in on my project workshops, showing up at events she used to ignore. I never said a word. I just kept working. One afternoon, I saw her talking to Professor Harlan outside his office. She was laughing, flipping her hair, asking questions I knew she didn't understand. When she left, I went in for my weekly meeting. "She wanted to know more about the fellowship," he said. "Interesting timing." I nodded. "She likes attention." He gave me a long look. "She doesn't have what you have, Jasmine. And she knows it." That stuck with me. For so long I had believed I wasn't enough. But now, here I was, being seen, really seen, by someone who mattered. And my sister, for all her charm, was starting to fall apart. I didn't take pleasure in her pain, but I couldn't forget the years I spent in her shadow while she stood on a pedestal built by our parents. Now, that pedestal was starting to crack. And she was realizing the truth. All the spotlight in the world can't hide what's real. And what was real mine was that I was becoming everything she pretended to be. The deeper I got into my fellowship project, the more it became a part of me. It wasn't just about proving something to my parents or outshining Vanessa anymore. It was about purpose. About helping kids like me. Quiet, overlooked, full of potential, but without the tools or support to succeed. I named the app Bridge Up. It was simple but powerful. It connected college students willing to volunteer as tutors with under-resourced high school kids who needed academic help. They could schedule one-on-one virtual sessions, access resources, and track their progress. Most importantly, it was free. No ads, no hidden fees. I worked around the clock, coding during the day, organizing volunteer sessions at night, and holding test runs with local schools over the weekends. Professor Harlan helped connect me with alumni who had started tech companies. They offered advice, even small donations to support my development costs. The best part? No one knew. Vanessa thought I was just wasting time with community service again. I let her believe that. It made things easier. She'd roll her eyes and say things like, "You could at least try to enjoy college, Jasmine. It's not that serious." She didn't know that Bridge Up had already helped 50 students in 2 months. She didn't know I had built a real team of volunteers, other students like me who wanted to make a difference. She didn't know I had been invited to present the app at a national innovation showcase held during graduation weekend, where one student would be recognized publicly by the university and offered a grant to continue their work post-college. It had all been kept quiet. The final announcement was part of the graduation ceremony, scheduled right after the diplomas. No one, not even the award recipient, would know the results until that moment. I didn't dare dream it would be me, but part of me hoped. Still, while I poured everything into Bridge Up, I kept watching Vanessa unravel. She started showing up less and less to class. One of her roommates told me she'd been missing deadlines and even skipped midterms. She still smiled on Instagram, still posted pictures of cafe lattes and her study grind. But I knew it was a lie. She was barely holding things together. One night, I walked into the library and found her again, alone, shoulders hunched, face pale. She didn't see me. She had printed copies of her transcript and was highlighting classes she failed. I saw her scribbling down excuses in a notebook. Medical emergency. Family death. Email never received. It hit me then. She was preparing to beg her way out of academic probation. That same day, Mom posted a picture of Vanessa with the caption, "So proud of our brilliant daughter, counting the days to graduation." I stared at it for a long time before turning my phone off. Vanessa was drowning, and our parents were too blind, or maybe too proud, to notice. But I couldn't focus on that anymore. I had my own path. For once, I wasn't chasing their approval. I was building something real. The week before graduation, I submitted my final presentation and wrapped up Bridge Up's first testing phase. We had officially matched over 100 students with tutors. The results were better than I could have hoped for. Higher grades, better attendance, and most importantly, confidence in the kids who had joined. That night, I sat alone in my dorm room and stared at the first version of the app running on my old cracked tablet. It was simple. It wasn't fancy, but it worked, and I had built it with my own 2 hands. All those years of being ignored, of working twice as hard just to be seen, I poured all of that into this. I thought about telling my parents, about giving them a chance to be proud before the rest of the world found out. But I didn't. They never asked what I was doing. They never showed up for me. And that was okay, because soon the truth was going to come out on its own. And when it did, I wouldn't need to say a word. They'd see it, everyone would. The days leading up to graduation felt like they were moving both too fast and too slow. I had so much left to do. Final exams, last team meetings for Bridge Up, wrapping up my part-time jobs. But I could feel something big coming, and I was ready for it. Vanessa, on the other hand, was falling apart. I hadn't seen her smile in days. Not a real one, anyway. She still posted carefully filtered pictures of coffee shops and library books, but behind the screen, she was barely holding things together. I knew from a friend in her department that she'd failed 2 classes and barely passed a third. The only reason she was graduating at all was because one professor took pity on her and offered extra credit. Still, our parents were planning a graduation dinner in her honor. A fancy restaurant, full of balloons and decorations that said, "Congratulations, Vanessa." Mom even sent out an email to extended family. No mention of me. I wasn't surprised. I'd stopped expecting anything from them a long time ago. "Your sister worked so hard," Mom told me on the phone, like she was reading from a script. "She deserves to be celebrated." I didn't argue. What would be the point? What they didn't know, what no one knew, was that the university had chosen one graduating student to receive the National Innovation Award. The recipient would be revealed at the ceremony. The winner would also get a full scholarship for graduate school and a grant to continue their project. I had been told I was a finalist. I hadn't told anyone. Not even Professor Harlan knew the final decision. "Just be proud of what you've done," he told me. "You've already changed lives." That was enough for me. But still, my heart wouldn't stop racing every time I thought about the moment. What if it's me? The night before graduation, I stayed in my dorm, packing quietly. Most of the other girls were out celebrating, but I needed the silence. I sat on my bed and opened the notebook I had started my freshman year. Inside were messy sketches, scribbled quotes, and outlines of what would become Bridge Up. I flipped to the first page and saw something I'd written during my very first semester. "They'll never give me a seat at the table, so I'll build my own." I closed the book and smiled. The next morning was clear and bright. The campus buzzed with excitement. Students in caps and gowns laughed and hugged, parents waved and snapped pictures, and professors handed out programs with practiced smiles. I lined up with my fellow graduates, heart pounding. Vanessa was a few rows ahead, posing for selfies and adjusting her gown. Our parents stood near the front, all dressed up, holding a giant bouquet with her name on the ribbon. I looked around. No flowers for me. No signs. No, "We're proud of you." But I felt okay, because this wasn't their moment. It was mine. As we marched into the auditorium, the music played and the crowd clapped. My name wasn't on anyone's lips, but I held my head high. I knew what was coming. The ceremony began. Students crossed the stage one by one, shaking hands, posing for photos. Vanessa strutted across the platform like a runway, blowing kisses to the crowd. Mom and Dad clapped like she had won the Nobel Prize. Then my name was called. Jasmine Carter. A few claps, maybe one cheer. But as I crossed the stage, I didn't need noise. I had silence and strength. I shook hands with the dean, accepted my diploma, and walked back to my seat with calm steps. Then, just as I sat down, the dean stepped back to the microphone. "Before we conclude today's ceremony," he said, "we have one final and very special recognition. This year, the National Innovation Award goes to a student who has shown exceptional creativity, resilience, and impact beyond the classroom." I stopped breathing. He continued, "This student has developed a program that has already helped over 100 underserved students gain access to free tutoring, improving both grades. She did it all while working multiple jobs, maintaining top academic performance, and serving as a quiet leader in our community." The entire hall fell silent. Then he said my name, Jasmine Carter. I froze. There was a pause, then applause, real applause. People stood. Professor Harlan looked straight at me and nodded with a proud smile. My classmates turned to stare. Vanessa's head whipped around. And my parents? They stood still, faces pale, mouths slightly open, bouquet hanging limp in Dad's hands. They had come to see Vanessa shine, but the spotlight had landed somewhere else. I don't remember walking back up to the stage. It felt like a dream, like I was floating. The applause echoed around me, but all I could hear was my own heartbeat, loud and steady. I climbed the steps, trying to keep my hands from shaking. When I reached the podium, Dean Harlan handed me the award, a polished plaque etched with my name, and smiled. "You earned this, Jasmine," he said, his voice low but firm. "Don't ever let anyone make you think otherwise." I nodded, eyes burning. Not with sadness, but with something new, something that felt like healing. Then the screen behind us lit up. A short video began to play. Photos of the students I'd helped through Bridge Up filled the screen. Smiling faces, progress charts, clips of them talking about how the app helped them pass math, improve writing, even dream bigger. One girl said, "I thought I was dumb, but Jasmine's app made me feel smart again." Gasps rose from the audience. My classmates leaned forward. Parents nudged each other. And in the front row, I saw my mom and dad, frozen, eyes wide, their pride for Vanessa still in their hands, wilting like the flowers they held. Vanessa sat rigid beside them, staring at the screen like it had betrayed her. A final slide appeared. Developed by Jasmine Carter, innovator, leader, changemaker. I didn't cry. Not then. I just smiled. After the ceremony, people I had never spoken to came up to me. Professors, students, even a few parents. They shook my hand, congratulated me, asked questions about Bridge Up. One professor said, "I wish my daughter had someone like you to look up to." I saw Vanessa watching from a distance, arms crossed tightly over her chest. For once, she wasn't the center of attention. She looked small, shrinking under the weight of everything she had pretended to be. Our parents walked up slowly. Mom's mouth opened, then closed again. Dad tried to smile but couldn't quite manage it. "I didn't know you were working on something like this," Mom said finally. "You never asked," I replied softly. They didn't say much after that? What could they say? For years, they treated me like an afterthought. And now, in front of hundreds of people, I had done what they never imagined. I had become someone worth seeing. Vanessa approached after they walked away. Her eyes were red, but her voice was calm. "You made your point," she said. "It wasn't about proving anything to you," I said. "It was about doing something that mattered." She looked down. "I didn't think you had it in you." "I know," I said. "No one did." She sighed. "They still won't stop comparing us." I met her eyes. "Let them. I'm not in the competition anymore." And I meant it. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was chasing anyone. Not Vanessa, not my parents, not their approval. I had carved out something on my own. Quietly. Patiently. And now it was real. That evening, while Vanessa went to her celebration dinner, still hosted in her name, because Mom had already paid for the reservation, I sat with Professor Harlan and a few of my fellowship peers under a string of campus lights. We ate pizza, shared stories, and laughed until it hurt. No pressure, no pretending. Just people who had seen me for who I really was. Later that night, back in my dorm, I opened the letter that came with the award. It confirmed my full scholarship for graduate school, tuition, housing, and even a startup grant to grow Bridge Up. I held the paper to my chest and whispered to myself, "You did it." Not to brag, not to show off, just to remind the little girl who was told she wasn't enough that she had always been more than they saw. I didn't need their approval anymore. They came to graduation expecting to watch their favorite daughter shine. Instead, they saw the daughter they ignored rise from the shadows and light up the whole room.